People who worked in restaurants, what was the worst customer that you had to deal with? Way back in the 80s I worked in a restaurant that was a favorite of a celebrity chef of those days. Jeff Smith, the frugal gourmet. Never seen a bigger shat than that guy. Literally make our servers cry. Nothing was ever right. He was beyond rude and condescending. Yet he kept coming back. He had a reputation of being a jerk off camera. Eventually he was disgraced by being outed as a child predator and was quickly forgotten by all. Our restaurant was a good place. Another celebrity chef of the time, Graham Kerr, the galloping gourmet, was always a pleasure to have visit. Barista here had a guy that regularly came in and ordered a complicated drink. He always finished the order by asking for a finger swirl in the drink. If you gave him a confused look he would say, well, how else am I gonna taste you? He was the worst. I used to work in a bar that sold very old booze. A drunk man tried to impress his friends by chugging from a bottle of Amaro from the early 60s. He had to pay for the whole thing since his lips touched it and it was useless. Cost him around $800. Worked in a popular restaurant for a while. We usually have quite a long wait, 30-40 minutes waits, during dinner service, and people are told by the hosts about this. There was this lady that got fed up with the wait after 10 minutes. She stormed into the restaurant, stood next to a table of 4 people and literally asked them, are you guys done? We've been waiting for a long time now and would like to have the table if you guys are just chatting. Was completely mind-blown how people are able to not give a duck and pull something like this in public. Our bar was having a private party. A drunk dude walks in and orders a drink. I knew he wasn't with the party based on his attire and that he came in every so often. I told him I couldn't get him a drink. He lost his mind, told me to duck off and then wanted to fight me. On his way out he yelled that we should put up signs. As he walked by the signs on the door saying we were closed for a private event. He came in the next day sober and apologized. A customer ordered one of our daily specials and didn't like it. So instead of complaining to me about the food and letting me offer something else, she complained to my manager about me. This was May of last year. In August of last year, turns out she was one of my college professors for the semester, teaching a management course. She recognized me the first day but I played it off like I didn't know her. Edit. She did not complain about me to my manager in front of me. I left to go work an event in a different building, and she left a sticky note for me after talking to my boss. I don't know what the sticky note said since I didn't bother to read it. My friend works at a restaurant. A vlogger was shooting a video and since it was allowed within the place nobody troubled her. Apparently she wanted one of those gon-sexual clickbait thumbnails. So she asked my friend to place his face in her breast while she squirted ketchup on herself. My friend refused as he was in a relationship but some other employee agreed to do so. After they shot the thumbnail, she marched in the next day claiming sexual assault. I don't know what happened after that but it did not turn out good for the liar. Bartending in a restaurant a few years ago. There was a private party and one of the guests asked me to plug in his iPhone to listen to a song. No big deal. I did it and he tipped me $20. He left his phone behind the bar and got wasted. When he was leaving I said, "Sir, don't forget about your phone." He threw a beer on me and told me to leave him the duck alone and told me get a real job. Guess who got to keep a nice new iPhone? After a wedding reception ended at our facility we were cleaning and I began the cleaning process on our espresso machine. The party was over almost a half hour already. The process takes 12 minutes. People were still there as the party slowly let out and the father of the bride asks me for an espresso. I told him I could get it to him, as we have a strict policy of always trying to satisfy our guests' needs. But the machine was cleaning and it would be done in about 10 minutes. He begins ranting about how much he paid for the wedding and stormed to our banquets manager and told them I refused to make it for him. Manager is a bag and starts ripping me in front of the guy. I show both of them that the machine is just finishing the cleaning process and it was impossible to make it beforehand. I got suspended for 2 weeks. I worked in Domino's. I had a guy throw a handful of pennies at me while laughing. The 30 odd cents was my tip. He was mad when I turned around and walked away without picking any of them up. His exact words were, "Oh, my money not good enough for you? Fine." I'll never order Domino's again. I've never had a customer fire themselves like that before. It was great. I waited tables for a few years in college and the worst table that I ever had was a Catholic priest and some guy he was trying to hit up for donations. The whole meal he was very condescending and demanding. After everything was done, I left the check at the table. He ended up walking out stiffing me not just on the tip but on the entire check. He even stole the leather check holder thing. I reported this to my manager. A couple weeks later, this same guy comes in with about 20 members of his congregation. My manager told him he wasn't welcome in our restaurant after walking out on his previous tab in front of his whole party. They all ended up leaving to go elsewhere. Best manager I've ever had. This one guy who basically hated his order so much that he waved me over and told me to put my hand out and proceeded to spit out entirely what was in his mouth into my hand. Then tell me to refund him and then make him something else. Edit. Holy guacamole. This comment blew up more than I thought. Thank you for the cake day comments and all around comments alone. And the awards. Much appreciated fellow redditors. I'd like to point out that I was too shocked to really retaliate to what he did at that moment. I don't like confrontation, so I walked away to the bathroom and cleaned my hands for what felt like hours. My co-worker saw what happened and told my boss, who kicked him out, and he was no longer allowed back. Anyways, have a great day. Work in a place that is frequented by local families and youth sports teams. On Sundays this one large group of people always come in and they are the worst. The parents drink and ignore their preteens who run around playing games in the entire restaurant, disrupting everyone else. They have tried to walk in a party of 45 during end of year sports party season when we are booked solid, and get mad that there isn't enough space for them, and they modify everything like crazy and leave zero in a tip. It's at least once a month the entire group comes in, and weekly for some of the individual families. Edit. Wow, thanks for the upvotes. In a rough time. Like unbelievably. And this oddly helped. Also, I am not a server. I am a cook who happens to take orders, pour beer, run food, clear tables, and do dishes. But primarily I cook. I had a guy that was a germaphobe and had really bad OCD. He came through before and my co-worker didn't want to deal with him. So I went to the drive-through window after washing my hands. I cashed out the order that was on screen and he reluctantly handed over his card. I gave him the coffee that I cashed him out for. He started yelling at me saying that it was wrong. Apparently the person that took the order forgot to type it in. Unfortunate, but it happens. He started yelling at the co-worker that didn't want to take his order at the window. So instead of just saying that it was the wrong order, getting refunded and being on his way, he stayed in the driveway for 20 minutes telling my co-worker that she was stupid and unprofessional and was unfit to be a supervisor. He kept demanding that we get the phone number of our franchise owner, but apparently the number was wrong and he kept yelling at us. But when we came back to the window after 20 minutes of this, he left. My supervisor went into the back to cry. I felt so bad for her. She's the sweet person. Fast forward less than a month later. He called the store to apologize and the manager made sure that my co-worker never dealt with him again, but he could come in as long as he didn't make a scene. He told the manager that his therapist told him he should apologize. He spent a combined total of 3 hours on the phone with the manager, where he apologized and also blamed us for making him late to his appointment that day. And at the end of the phone call, he asked if we were hiring. Had a man and his wife come in during a really busy lunch rush. He was rude off the bat, interrupting me, not wanting to listen to me speak. Whatever, it happens all the time. He was very adamant that he wanted both chips and salsa and a plate of roasted wings as appetizers. He kept emphasizing that he wanted them together before they ordered their lunch, even though chips and salsa only take a minute and wings take about 12. I rang them in together because of how he ordered them. In hindsight, I should have made completely sure, but not 3 minutes later. The man is waving at my co-worker across the restaurant, yelling at her about how they've been there for 30 minutes and his appetizer is taking too long and he wants it before his wings. I was at a party table, so she ran back and grabbed the chips and the wings, which were somehow up as well, and brought them out. He took one bite of a wing and tossed the plate like a frisbee across the table towards her and started complaining about them being cold. I rush over to see what's going on and he starts yelling at me, saying his food is awful and this is the worst service he's ever gotten in his life. I don't do well with grown men yelling at me, so I went to the kitchen and my manager went out and thankfully had my back as much as he could and made the guy pay for the wings and the chips and then leave. After he left, I started to clean the table where I found a single penny he tipped me with that my co-worker promptly threw in the trash and got a call from my general manager asking why a man had called me professionally challenged on Yelp. There was an old couple I loved who used to come in every single week to the restaurant I worked at. They were super nice and clearly still very much in love. I'd always kinda thought of them almost like role models of how I'd like to be in my retirement. They lived a couple of towns over in a picturesque place and would always have nice stories about what they'd been up to. The guy spoke like Ray Winston, which made him cool as duck in my eyes. Serving them always made the shift better. Anyway, one day we were doing a charity thing for World Hunger Day, specifically for children in Africa, and there were relevant pictures of starving kids on the flyer we gave with the bill. It was one of those tick here if you want to add 25p or something things. It was a bit cringe, but most customers were like whatever, it's only 25p. So anyway, I take over the bill and the guy totally blindsides me with his response, "I ain't giving no money to some ducking Cohen." I was caught off guard and stood in silence as he went into a massive racist rant. I totally never expected that. I'd seen these guys as people to aspire to and it turns out they were massive bigots. I was gutted. This guy threw a beer in my face when I stuck up for myself and told him to stop banging his fist on the bar and screaming a CIO to get my attention. Any table that mentioned the tip at all, don't worry, we tip well if you do X. We'll tip big, we'll take care of you. Holding the tip over my head doesn't get you better service. You get the same everyone else does. They were always pretentious and rude and never tipped well. Used to be a bartender at this hybrid restaurant bar movie theater. On big movie releases, the bar would get absolutely slammed, and on this particular night we had run out of glassware completely. People were allowed to take their drinks into the theater with them. The only glassware I had at the time were regular pint glasses that you would normally serve water in. We only served beer in them in a pinch. This guy and his wife GF got lucky and caught a seat at the bar and he ordered a Jack Daniels neat. Having no other glassware, I put it in a pint glass and explained that we were running low on rocks glasses, assuming he would understand since it was absolute chaos everywhere you looked. He took it and said I'm not very happy in a smarmy way and gave the city little grin. I apologized again and said unfortunately we're not making any more glasses back here, and him and his wife acted like I reached across the bar and slapped him. I just got my manager and told him to deal with them. He told them the same thing I had told them regarding the lack of glassware and gave them a free drink, which they seemed happy with. I would have felt bad if there was something else I could have done for them, but there wasn't. So duck that guy. This old guy who asked if I was included in the order. I'm 17. I worked in a beach town in NJ for a while, and NY tourists were the worst. It was the act that they were doing everybody a favor by being there. This was a rich beach town, not one that relied on tourism at all. In fact, these arrogant tourists probably brought the average income down, and definitely brought the average tips down. And anybody who snapped their fingers, I preferred "hey, you" to finger snapping. I worked at a Vietnamese restaurant back in high school and I had a Viet family come in to eat. They gave me snobby vibe the entire time, especially after I told them I couldn't speak Vietnamese. They ordered regular pho but asked for no cilantro. So I rang the order in with no cilantro. It came out with cilantro in it and I told the kitchen what the family asked. The kitchen told me they couldn't do anything about it. So I told my manager and they told me to ask the family if they still wanted it. Family said yes, so I brought it out and they took out the cilantro and ate the entire thing. At the end of the meal they spoke to the owner and complained how I got their order completely wrong. Got the food for free, and got their bill taken out of my pay. The owner told me I should have removed the cilantro myself. Itty management. Itty customer. Edit. I was not angry that the customer ordered no cilantro. I was upset at the fact that they abused their rights by asking not to pay for their food when they clearly ate everything. Also, it's been a few years, haha. Fast food near a high school. The absolute worst were the moms. Had one who came in weekly and screamed about wrong orders or whatever complaint she could dream up so she could get free food for her entire family. Then you get the loser douches who think harassing employees is funny. The absolute worst customer was the owner of the franchise. He'd walk in, test employees and then fire someone for some issues so minor it was likely just made up. I will never forget the time when our customers riot cause we ran out of ketchup. I was there thinking, is this the peak of my US experience? I worked at a bakery for 2 years. And I had to deal with honestly the most heinous and rude customers ever. I've worked in the food service industry my whole life and lived in Toronto up until 3 years ago, and I have never dealt with such entitlement. Anyways, one day one of our staff members quit by text message 5 minutes before her shift and 30 minutes before we were set to open at 8 AM on a Saturday. We were hard pressed finding someone to cover, so I was alone until a front of house person was able to come in. About an hour later, I had one of the kitchen staff helping me, and all they could do was grab things and bag them as they weren't trained on cash or coffee. So here I am running around trying to help customers, make coffees, ring people through, and clearly stressed. This douchebag man was clearly annoyed that he had to wait, huffing and puffing, and eventually loudly exclaimed, "Duck this." I'm not ducking waiting for this it, and proceeded to throw his bagged muffin at my head and storm out. I legit almost chased him down. I was livid. Customers are it lol. I used to manage a restaurant and hated those couple of times in 5 years of my working there when some entitled customers left without paying because the waitresses didn't come to pick up my money. That's a piece of it move and a poor excuse, when all you need is to grab a waitress's attention by simply talking. Once it was a family of 4 who left the restaurant during a busy evening and we realized that the bill wasn't paid after some 10 minutes had passed. I checked the cameras and saw the father taking the bill, putting the money in, sitting there for just 3-4 minutes, looking around and taking the money back and leaving with the whole family. Lucky our owner was a great guy and told me to simply ban the ducker and his family. And to my surprise, that piece of a came back with friends on a busy evening in a couple of months. I was very excited watching his face being embarrassed in front of his friends and customers sitting outside when I told him that he is banned, and when his wife started to get upset I told them I remembered them and told them the whole story with me checking the cameras and seeing him taking the money back and all. Not me, but I heard about my dad's former co-worker being an absolute asshole to a waitress. He'd only started working in my dad's department, IT, a few months earlier, and my dad did not like him from the start. This guy accompanied my dad on a business trip to Australia a couple of years back, and they went to a nice restaurant one evening. This guy proceeded to tell the waitress the food was horrible, then just resorted to personally insulting the waitress, which made her cry, on top of refusing to tip her. My dad immediately thought this guy is a complete asshole. That same guy a few weeks later also tried to get my dad fired, so he could get my dad's position as head of IT. My dad confessed to me that he was thinking of leaving that company anyway, but that guy made him GTFO. Thankfully he's well known in his industry. He's the type of guy that could resign a job on Friday afternoon and start a new one on Monday morning, so to speak. So my dad submitted his resignation and immediately got a job elsewhere. Unfortunately the guy did get my dad's job, but lots of people in the IT department jumped ship to the company my dad was working at. As a result, the arsehole who had taken my dad's job ironically got fired a year later because nobody wanted to work for him. Edit. Okay, I'm getting a lot of responses about tipping in Australia. My dad was not aware you guys don't tip. He always tips everywhere he goes. Hope that clears it up. I used to work in Park City where they have Sundance Film Festival. So you have a bunch of high maintenance persnickety people in the film industry in what is otherwise a pretty chill ski town in Utah. Just the absolute gall people have in customizing their order is enough to drive you crazy. I hope every line cook in every restaurant in Los Angeles makes $1 million. Here are some of the ones I remember. Latte. Half almond milk, half cream. Mixed. extra hot with a small spurt of honey on the bottom. A black bean burger but in a spinach tortilla with the tomatoes chopped not sliced. A breakfast burrito. But make it vegan. We had vegan options on the menu. The burrito wasn't one of them. I guess nobody from LA eats gluten, so I got a bunch of free croissants, so it wasn't a total loss. I worked in a Japanese restaurant and it was a small restaurant. So I was usually working as cashier, waiter, busboy, and delivery driver. Basically it was me handling everything and the owner would come out from the back and take over if there was a delivery. Anyway, one day we had a family come in. Mom and dad got sushi rolls for themselves and then got chicken hibachis for the kids. The hibachi came with a side of rice and I watched as these kids started throwing rice at each other. Mom and dad did absolutely nothing to stop them. Like not even a cut that out. When they left the place, all around their table was an absolute mess. And to make things worse, the floor was carpeted. So cleaning rice out of it was a huge pain in the ass normally. But this was on a whole different level. Didn't even get a sorry about the mess from them. Worked fast food in high school. I've got a few. 1. Man orders double cheeseburger with extra cheese and receives one with 4 slices instead of the usual 2. 2 minutes later, he is absolutely red in the face and screaming at the poor cashier. He's demanding to talk to the little it that made his sandwich and asking if we think this is some kind of joke. Apparently, and he ordered extra cheese, he wanted 1 extra slice, not 2. 2. Some guy comes to the drive-thru and orders 4 fish sandwiches. We only had 2 pieces of fish cooked and they were really close to their hold expiration time. Since we had to cook more anyway, my manager said to waste those 2 since they were old and make all fresh ones for the customer. Guy comes up to the window and they ask him to pull forward because it'll be a couple minutes. Meanwhile, we keep serving other cars. After a couple orders go out, this dude is in the lobby and asking for a manager. He is irate that we made him wait on his food while serving other people. The manager apologizes and explains the situation. Most people would be thrilled we didn't serve them old food. But for some reason that just made this guy angrier. He starts yelling louder and then threatens my manager with physical violence over it. She asks him to leave and threatens to call the police. Dude storms out, slamming the door so hard he broke the latch, and squeals his tires as he leaves the parking lot without his order. Never came back for it either. 3. We had this regular who came in every Sunday morning and ordered the same thing. A side salad, supersized fries, and a happy meal for her grandkid. One day, the person who bagged her order put the salad and the fries in the same bag as we were trained to do. If you've never seen a supersized fry container, they are tall, and the side salad is in one of those little rectangular plastic things. So as you can imagine, the fries fell over. For a normal person this is no big deal, but not for this lady. She needed new fries and a new salad, in separate bags this time. Of course the fries we had already made that came up 1 minute ago were not good enough, and she refused to leave or accept the new ones until we made a fresh basket. I had a customer randomly ask if we spoke English, as I was talking to them in English. Used to wait tables a while back. Breakfast place. Mother's Day was always the worst to work in restaurants, as I'm sure anyone else can agree with. So this Mother's Day is going particularly well. And then towards the end of the brunch rush I get sat with a party of 8. Everyone's in a good mood. Mom, it's a day, orders our breakfast tacos with no onions. She says no onions like 3 times. Right, no onions. Drinks are going fine. Everyone is doing well. Food comes out. I ask how everything looks. Mom pushes her plate away and loudly and aggressively says I said no onions. I look down at the tacos to see that there are in fact no onions. Me, Mom, I put your order in with no onions. There are no onions. She gets a eating grin and goes, oh yeah? Well, what are these? And points to the green bell peppers on the tacos. Me, those are green bell peppers. She rolls her eyes and goes, same thing. The table is now silent as no one in her party knows what to do. Clearly blinded by her stupidity, my brain short circuits. I think to myself, no, the duck, they aren't the same thing. They're not even the same ducking color. You can read. You're a ducking adult. Just say how you want something and stop making a scene. Instead I just put on my best customer service smile and said, right, sorry about that. We'll get that fixed. Took it back to the kitchen and told my chef and he just started laughing about it. $0 tip. Happy Mother's Day. Had some racist lady ask my Guatemalan co-worker a nonsensical question. Think something along the lines of which steaks are vegan, about the menu several times. And when given the answer would repeat the question at louder and louder increments until she screamed at me. Open kitchen. I'm white. Excuse me sir. Sir. Insert dumb question. She didn't like it when I gave her the same answer, because her question made no sense. She just assumed my co-worker couldn't understand because she had an accent. In reality, this co-worker, while she has an accent, speaks Spanish, English and Arabic, which to my estimation is 200% more languages than this arsehole speaks. One time a guy stared at my chest as I explained the specials, and then asked me about the specials. His girlfriend didn't speak to me for the rest of their meal. He gave me a 10% tip. Pizza, ice cream, sandwich shop in a small rural town. I was on delivery. We had this guy who ordered maybe once a week or so. This customer lived a solid half an hour outside town. None of us knew why the owner ever agreed to deliver to this guy in the first place, being that far out. But we used to wonder if the owner was being threatened into it. The level of it the customer would raise if you didn't bring him cheese and peppers for his pizza was absolute madness. There was an incident where a delivery driver found the customer waiting on his porch polishing a shotgun, and the first thing the customer did was loosely point the gun towards the driver and say, "Did you bring my cheese and peppers?" We fully believe the customer would have shot our driver if the answer had been no. As it was, the driver didn't have as much cheese and peppers as the customer would have liked. Customer called the restaurant. Threw a fit. From then on, when we delivered to this customer because the owner didn't cut him off, we were told to take a bucket of cheese and peppers with us. I'm talking like one of those bulk ice cream buckets you buy at the supermarket. We all kept on in our trucks, but we had to start taking an extra just for this one customer. I wonder if the guy was even in it for the pizza. Not necessarily the worst crime here, but there was a group of little old ladies that would come in every Sunday after church. All four would get the same thing every week. Iced tea and a half grilled Asian salad with a senior discount. $4.19. Every time they paid with $4 bills and 2 dimes. The tip? 4 cents. While this sucked enough on its own, the fact that they were always super sweet to everyone made it burn even more. But on top of all that, on Sunday morning afternoon, a really busy shift, they would sit there for several hours. So on a busy day when you only had 3 or 4 tables, having one of those tables taken 4 hours with a guaranteed 4-cent tip really sucked for your income for the day. Also worked at a fast food restaurant in high school. We closed at 9 on Sundays. Almost every Sunday, a group from a local church would roll in at about 8:55 and order full meals, full desserts, and then sit in the dining room until 10:30 or 11. We ended up having to make extra strong Sunday ammonia cleaner that we would use on the surrounding tables to get them to leave. As a high schooler, it was infuriating. I have 2 from the same restaurant. First one goes like this. I worked as a busboy and it was getting near closing time. At this point it was around 9:30. We closed at 10, and this table, who was probably 20-ish feet away from where I was, started trying to say to me that's a free meal. I stopped vacuuming because I just didn't understand what they were asking me. Supposedly they were under the belief that if someone was vacuuming before close then they got a free meal. So eventually the owner comes up to me and asks me how far away I was vacuuming, and I said the same thing. She just told me yeah, they're idiots, and told me to wait a little bit. They ended up leaving past 10:30 and I don't think they left a tip. They didn't get their free meal. Another shorter story was the time that 2 giant groups of about 16 people each came in a few weeks later at about 9:45. I think I got home at midnight that night. Back in college I was working my first job as a front of house staff for an on-campus locally owned burger place. My main job was to call the order numbers out to customers and pass their food off. Easy enough. Well, one night we get absolutely slammed with to-go orders at close. I'm the only person out at the front and there were 2 cooks behind me working on the food. A man ordered 2 burgers. Cool. Well, We're so busy I'm obviously not aware of what number goes with what customer off the top of my head. And I call out a number. A customer takes it and heads out. Turns out the wrong customer grabbed that man's order. He proceeded to yell profanities at me, calling me a ducking idiot, demanding his food be free and that he gets free fries, all in front of other customers. I started crying. Held up everyone else's food in the process. The manager has to tell him to duck off and remakes his food. It was just one giant shit show.